All right, welcome back to Rarest Photos. I hope you enjoyed the episode earlier of the From Here to the Great Unknown. And somebody asked me about the quality of the video, and hopefully this is a little bit better quality of the video, for the picture at least. We are reading Are You Lonesome Tonight? And of course, we should have another conversation with Daria Matera on Friday. Well, it'll be loaded on Saturday. Going to be kind of a busy Friday for me. I got a golf tournament, so I'll be playing in that probably until about 2 or 3, and I'll probably have to do the interview with him later. So Friday could be a light day for videos unless I can get some done somehow. I don't know, on Thursday, to load for Friday. So hopefully I can be with you as much as possible during this Thanksgiving weekend. But I want to let you know that I'm going to try to get as much read to y'all today. And if you need to go back and catch up, that's great. Thank you to those that have subscribed lately to the channel, new subscribers. Thank you to the existing subscribers, the new members that are out there. The super thanks that have been put on my account, I guess. I guess you guys hit the little heart button or whatever like that, and the thanks, and it's a little monetary donation. Very appreciated. And I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Let's get to reading. Okay. So, we'll go ahead and do a brief catch-up from last time. Basically, Elvis and Lucy spent time together. Elvis gave Lucy a diamond ring. Lucy put it in Elvis's pocket because it was too big, and then she was slipping off in the rain. And then Darius says, when I spoke with Mr. Presley, 73, the gatekeeper at Graceland, he couldn't exactly recall how or when he met Lucy, but says he knows her well and has known her since the early 70s. When I reminded him of the introduction at the gate, he remembered and said that it was probably the first time he met her. Lucy called him periodically after this meeting, has visited him, and remains in contact. So that's Elvis's uncle. That's Vernon's brother. And think about that. Lucy talks about calling Vernon all the time, and checking on Elvis for his health, stuff like that. So let's get to reading. I returned to Dallas and found my family in the midst of a whirlwind of activity. Desiree, 17, was preparing for her first test of senior year of high school. Jacqueline, 10, was in the finals of another piano competition, and as usual, she won. Jacques, 14, was in a Jesuit school and had 2 jobs on the side, one working in the school library and another as a waiter for the Spring Valley Country Club. The other 3 had left home. Debbie was married and living in California. Melody was in London, Ontario, working as a commercial artist, and Denise was studying psychology at Arizona State. All my little birds were darting in and out of the nest, and it was getting impossible to keep up with them. As any mother of a big family knows, you get pulled in 10 different directions. Instead of the children becoming independent as they grow up, they appeared to need me more. At the same time, Elvis was pressuring me to visit him more often, and spoke again about making it permanent by our getting married. So many things were tugging at me. I wanted to be with him, but I didn't have the strength to go through what it would entail. Shattering my family, dealing with the people around him, surviving the wrath of the Colonel, it appeared insurmountable. Elvis was angry about the going-ons at Graceland and Vegas, and he swore he was going to make a purge. Even though he said it with determination, I knew that he was afraid. He didn't take change well, and would do anything not to have to instigate it. He called me frequently during this period, sometimes 3 or 4 days in a row. We talked about the old times and assured each other of our love. Now, the holiday season was hectic as always. I was volunteered to head a fundraising show for the church. I really worried about Elvis's health and decided to call his father again to get a straight answer. It was a touchy thing to do because in order to prod Mr. Presley into telling me what he knew, I had to tell him what I knew. That would betray my trust with Elvis and might make him angry. It was a risk I had to take. Something had to be done or Elvis was going to get worse. Mr. Presley was warm and friendly and said he remembered me from previous calls. Well, I told him how worried I was about his son and expressed my growing suspicion that his doctors were contributing to his problem by prescribing too much medication. Well, Mr. Presley was silent for a moment. Lucy, are you the person he said would stand by him, no matter what? He never told me your name. He said it wasn't important, but he had someone he could depend on when everyone else turned on him. I didn't know if that was me or not, but it didn't matter. Getting Elvis help was critical. You're very nice to be so concerned, he said. I'm also worried about him, and we're trying to find out what's wrong. We will soon. I wanted to shout, "Don't you know what's wrong? It's so obvious." But it might be taken as an insult, because Mr. Presley was my last hope. I just reiterated my concern. "Honey, I promise we'll find out who's contributing to this," he said, sounding so much like his son. "Now tell me, how long have you known him?" "Well, I've known Elvis 23 years, Mr. Presley, since we were both very young." I didn't elaborate, and I asked him about his own health to change the subject. He said he was doing better, and I begged him not to tell Elvis about my call, so he agreed. Mr. Presley opened up and began telling me about the people around Elvis trying to destroy him financially and emotionally. Now, that did little to make me feel better. In fact, the whole conversation scared me. Mr. Presley was locked into his belief that his son had some kind of sickness that needed treatment. I sensed he was unable or unwilling to face the truth, that Elvis was addicted. Even though it was inspired by love, it was this kind of head in the sand thinking that Elvis didn't need. He needed to stay away from doctors and their pills instead of soliciting new ones. If Elvis wanted something, good or bad, well, he got it. His power, wealth, fame were such that he could turn respected doctors into gophers. Elvis appeared to be heading over the cliff, and not a person around him was going to raise a finger to stop it. Well, I searched my mind to find a way to get through, but it felt so hopeless. Now, Elvis was performing in Vegas through much of December, then gave a big New Year's concert at a stadium in Detroit. He called later that week glum and exhausted. The same Vegas that renewed him 6 years before had become a dreaded albatross around his neck. He had long tired of the shows, but was powerless to end his commitment. His only way out was to get sick. "I've always neglected you," he said, barely whispering. "I'll make it up to you. When I hear your voice, I know there's someplace else besides this madness. You're like a dream I keep in a special place, a place I can return to when everything is bad. I have to protect you, honey." When he spoke like that about protecting me, that usually meant that he'd had an argument with someone, or there was a shake-up in his inner circle. He was so weary that I didn't ask him to elaborate. A few days later, I read that he had celebrated his 41st birthday in Vail, Colorado, with Linda and all of his cronies. I couldn't believe it. He was telling me how he hated all these people, and that now he didn't use the word hated, obviously, that he disliked all these people, and that they were using him. And then he takes him to a ski resort and throws a big party. Was he just stringing me along? That hurt as much as anything he'd ever done. He was using me like a yo-yo, pulling the string, vowing his love, calling frequently, and then spinning away with someone else. Well, I healed as I've always healed, turning my attention to my work and my children. Desiree was preparing to graduate from high school. After my visit with Elvis in Memphis, I began to seriously consider telling him about her. Now, thanks to a snow bunny party, my doubts returned. If he wasn't strong enough to make his own decisions, if the people around him were in control, then there was no way we could ever be accepted in his life. Those around him would see Desiree and me as a threat, and he would be forced to take sides, and he wasn't healthy enough to handle that pressure on top of everything else. Tall and striking, Desiree was a natural model and was soon approached by one of my associates at work at a sales presentation for food products at the Dallas Convention Center. She begged me to let her do it. I was reluctant, but gave in. She looked beautiful when she left the house, and Denise was home from college, and we both watched her leave, the crowning moment of her transition from a teenager to a woman. That night, Denise was sitting alone reading. It grew late, and we both expressed concern about Desiree. Finally, there was a knock at the door. I went into my room and put on a robe. From the bedroom, I heard Denise scream, "Oh my God." There were men's voices, and Denise was crying. I dashed in and saw 2 police officers standing in the living room. Desiree ran and embraced me. She was shaking and crying violently. I was crying myself by now, trying to determine what had happened, but at the same time deathly afraid of finding out. The police said that Desiree had been attacked by a man who tried to do that to her in the parking lot after the food product show. She escaped, but the attacker had ripped her clothes and had cut her slightly with his knife. The effect of the attack on Desiree was devastating. She hadn't participated in normal teenage activities because of her strong interest in music, ballet, and Bible studies. After the attack, She withdrew and lived in constant fear. And I suffered with her through it all, feeling the pain and sharing her fear. It was such a bad time for both of us. Elvis was out of my life again. He called and left messages, but I never called back or went to the phone if I was home. I was angry at him and worried sick about Desiree. I was afraid to get into an argument with him because I was liable to blurt out that while he was playing in Colorado, his daughter was being attacked in Dallas. Well, I cooled down enough to answer one of his calls that April. I showed little enthusiasm and he sensed it immediately. He asked if I was sick or angry. Well, we argued briefly about Linda and his ski party, but my heart wasn't in it. He quickly came to his own defense, saying the same thing as before, that he was mad at the guys. They were jerks. Linda was just his nurse, and it wasn't like it appeared in the papers. The same old tune he'd sung before. Now, despite knowing this, I was weak and lonely, and I began swallowing it again. Do you really need me? I said. Do you really care? Tell me the truth. Desiree, I love you, he said in a deep, convincing voice. You gotta believe me. You're my lifeline. Listen to me. We'll always be together, honey. You just have to be patient and remember what we vowed long ago. Well, he wore me down. That he still sounded sick also worked to gain my sympathy. He said he was having financial problems due to lawsuits filed against him because his men had roughed up some people and that his father's condition was growing worse. He painted such a gloomy picture of his life that I ended up apologizing for starting the argument. I'm getting things done slowly but surely, he said. I'm cleaning house. Daddy and I had a long talk, and we're going to get rid of the guys. Linda, too. She's just taking enough from me. He said he was so angry that he found it difficult to record. There's no inspiration. We talked about his new releases. Danny Boy, Solitaire, and Moody Blue. I really like Moody Blue. It's faster. It was written by Mark James, the same guy who wrote Suspicious Minds. He's a good songwriter and come up with a sure thing. He talked about his tour, how tiring it was. He reminded me that he was playing in Fort Worth soon and wanted us to get together. I told him that it would be nice, but inside I knew it was probably impossible. I couldn't see him when he was traveling with his entourage. I asked him about my ring, and he said it had vanished. Either he misplaced it, or someone took it. He said he was missing a few things and suspected one of the guys who was the thief. He promised to get me another. Well, there's the answer right there. Gosh, what if that was just one of those, anyways. One of y'all wrote a comment the other day that round diamond with diamond baguettes was the same kind of ring that he got Priscilla and the same ring that he got Ginger. Would she have known? Ginger didn't write it. Well, I don't really know. I mean, the thing is, all we have is this book, right? We're just trying to read along. But yeah, there's no ring to verify that. Now, she said she got one, but anyhow. I feel like I said, I'm reading along with y'all. It's not like I know things ahead of time, so I'm kind of just soaking that in right there. Honey, I've been talking to God and reading the Bible again. You're right. He has all the answers. And one of the answers is that we'll be together. I have so much to tell you. We'll change everything. Just wait. Well, he'd won me over again. What had started out as anger ended up with renewed hope that our long, unfinished story might be headed for a happy ending. But my elation was tempered by Desiree's continued depression over her attack. She decided to move into her own apartment. I fought it, but she said it was the only way that she could lose her fear and regain control of her life. When she did visit, she was sullen and strange. She stared at me, often with no expression on her face and nothing in her eyes. It troubled me, but I thought it was a delayed reaction to the assault and would pass. So Desiree writes, 2 months after she was attacked, Desiree received a startling phone call that had an even deeper effect. The call was from a woman who at the time was a friend of Mother's, Desiree explains. She said they had just had a long talk, and my mother told me who my father was. Then she told me my father was Elvis Presley. Are you sick? I said. She insisted that Mother told her. Well, I was in a daze for weeks. It couldn't be. Why hadn't Mother told me? Then I thought of all the things that happened in the past. Mother's reaction to Elvis's songs and movies. The time in the car when she started crying and began hugging me so tightly after hearing a song on the radio. That happened more than once. Then there was the way she often looked at me. Her expression was love mixed with a deep sadness, like she was seeing me and someone else at the same time. By then, we all suspected that Mother had once had something going on with Elvis, but nobody ever speculated that it was a mystery man who was my father. It was still too hard to believe. The woman kept calling and telling me I had to confront Mother, and Mother should just tell Elvis. I just couldn't do it. Mentioning anything about my father had always upset her. As if my life wasn't troubled enough, I now had to continue with this. Was I Elvis Presley's daughter? And if I was, what did that mean? And why had Mother kept it from me? That made me mad. But still, I couldn't confront her. Now, Lucy was not aware that Desiree had been told this until 10 years later, during the writing of this book. She said that she had never confided to her former friend about Elvis being Desiree's father, and that the woman had just put it together because of Desiree's resemblance combined with Lucy's emotional reaction to Elvis's songs. The woman then took it upon herself to tell Desiree. Denise, aware of what was happening with Desiree at the time, tried to get her mother to open up. We were driving to the Dallas Market Center, where I worked. I told Mother that she should tell Desiree who her father was, that it wasn't fair not to tell her. Well, Mother started crying, and telling me that I just didn't understand. She was right, I didn't understand. Desiree was going through hell and needed to know. Mother never even asked me how I knew, but she did finally admit it was Elvis. Then she made me promise not to tell Desiree. Despite how I felt, I promised. Is it possible, and it probably is possible, that her sister told her, that Denise told Desiree, that it wasn't this woman, that she just said, hey, if you tell her it's a woman that told you. Because, sisters are sisters. And Denise obviously felt like Desiree deserved to know. And this was while Elvis was still alive. This would have been 76, I'm guessing. I don't know, 76 or 77. We're getting close to the end of Elvis's life. And it seems to be like, so Desiree was 18, so 76. Yeah. This is such an interesting book. It really is. And I know that there's a lot of people that don't believe it. And there's a lot of people that do. I get comments about it. I get messages about it. And yes, you're right. DNA would go a long way towards proving something, that she was related to Elvis. It wouldn't prove that she was the daughter. There's no way you get that anymore. Elvis is not here. Lisa's not here. Like I said, I don't know where Desiree's at in wanting to do that. This was her mother's story, and yes, it's her story too. And at 18 years old, she was told that her dad was Elvis. Not by her mom, but either her sister or this woman friend. That has to be psychologically scarring and very sad, especially knowing that her dad, or allegedly her dad, passed away the following year. Within a year's time, probably. I feel like right around her birthday. When was Desiree's birthday? Let's take a look at this birth certificate. And a lot of y'all are asking me to do side-by-side comparisons and all the other stuff. I'm going to do several wrap-up videos on this that actually have some of the stuff that I found, some stuff that folks have found and sent to me in emails. This is a wonderful community. And yes, there's some people that send me stuff that say there's no way it happened. This is why it couldn't happen. And I'll share all the other stuff too. I'll share everything that I possibly can because I want y'all to have a decision on this, Desiree was born, the signature was August 26, 1958. Birth was August 24th, 1958. So, think about that. Elvis dies August 16th. Elvis's mother dies August 14th. A daughter was born August 24th of 58. August is a very significant month with Elvis. Interesting thing here is that full maiden name of the mother, Lucy Barban, and then signature parent, Mrs. Lucy Barban Presley. Got the mailing address, Alexandria, Louisiana. And so I certify this is a true and correct copy of a certificate or document registered with the Vital Records Registry of the state of Louisiana. That's the state registrar and state health officer. Okay? The father's fake name was Randolph Presley. I got somebody who said, I got proof that a Randolph Presley existed. And I asked him for it, and they never sent it to me. I haven't found it. Derry hadn't found it. Nobody else has. And of course, the name, Desiree, or Desire, apostrophe E, Romaine Presley. So a lot of very interesting stuff here. Looking forward to reading more of this and to talking more with Derry. And hopefully we find some answers, or at least come as close to possible as an answer or a belief that we can. And this has been a fun journey with y'all. And I say too much. I could probably cut those out of the video. But I won't, because that's just me. TCB, TLC. Till next time, this is Rare Elvis Photos. I hope you enjoyed this, and stay tuned for more videos. Go find my other channel, Elvis and the Legends, and I'll be putting another couple songs on there today. Probably Loving You and Follow That Dream. Oh, I love singing Follow That Dream, and I love that movie. What a great movie. One of my favorites of his. And of course, Loving You, we all know where that's from. That's from the movie Loving You, with one of my favorite actresses, Miss Dolores Hart. All right, once again, TCB, TLC, till next time. Love you much. Rare Elvis Photos.